What's going on, everybody? Fall in, at attention. You are locked into another episode of the Husker Army podcast, brought to you by the Hurrdat Sports Network and brought to you by the Husker Facebook fan page, Husker Army 2024. Go check them out. Guys, I am your host, Bryan Knutzen. With me, as always, former Husker wide receiver and multi-time national champion, Kenny Cheatham, a.k.a. KC. Our recruiting guru, Mr. Matt Sass, a.k.a. Herbie Husker. And I'll get to the certain things in a little bit, but you know what? This introduction's too important. I got to give him one. Our guest today, everybody, former Husker special teams coach, positions coach, and defensive coordinator, Bill Busch. And Bill, got to show the graphic in honor of being part of 93.7 The Ticket. You're enlisted as number 93 to the Husker Army, sir.
I like that. That makes that's a great number for that, and glad to be part of the ticket. But it's just really cool to be on here, just to be asked. Anytime someone is asked to be on such a great podcast, it's great to be around that. Kenny being an awesome player that you were. It's just a great opportunity to get a chance to be on this podcast with you guys. And just like I said, anything with the Army is incredible. So very, very cool stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate that.
Definitely do appreciate that, Coach.
I had a loyal breaker give me this hat, and I wear it all the time. You can see it says red on it, that remember everyone deployed. And so that's always one of my main go-to hats that I wear on the air quite a bit too. So I grabbed that one today.
I know. I sometimes I feel like I need to explain to people. I almost feel like a fraud being called Husker Army because I'm not a vet. I've never served, but I do thank everybody that ever has, because if not for them, their sacrifice, their bravery, we wouldn't have what we have.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
Yes. It's really just an honor of anybody in armed forces that we're called Husker Army. So.
Yep, it's very cool. It's kind of it's a combination of two, but it always comes up as respect for the military. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we feel. You got to respect them. They do it. It's a thankless job, just like being an offensive lineman. It's a thankless job.
Yep.
All right,
they have to do it.
Real quick, we'll plug something that Ken from Gen Red's got going on. I'm sure everybody's heard about it by now. We've got a charity golf scramble going on in October. There's the graphic for you. It'll be October 12th. It's going to be at Woodland Hills Golf Course in Eagle, Nebraska. It'll be a 2 p.m. start time. The cost is $500 per four-person team. So it's $125 for each person, but you do need to have all that when you register right off the bat. You can't register one at a time. So we'll have that going. The links are, I believe you could go to Generation Red's Twitter page. Ken, I believe, has the links there for it. It's a great, great event that's going to be going on. It is for the victims in Nebraska and Iowa for the tornadoes and the storms that ripped through there back on April 26th. It devastated Elkhorn alone. It just laid waste to a lot of people's homes and businesses throughout Omaha and Iowa. So this is a great thing to get in on. If you'd like to sponsor, that'd be great. It's $250 to sponsor a hole. Get your logo displayed at the tee. I've already got that in there. So Husker Army is definitely going to sponsor a hole. We're in there for that. So please, guys, it's going to be a great event. Get yourselves over to Gen Red. Check out the links. Get in there. Get yourselves into the scramble. We're trying to get former players a part of it, former coaches. We may even have some current players get involved as well. I've been in talks with a couple. So we don't know. And judging by the Chasing 3 a couple episodes ago, some of these guys like to play golf. So we need to get them out there. So we'll get that out of the way quick. And one more great news that I received this morning. I looked at our YouTube account, Husker Nation. You showed up, you showed out, you helped us out. We are now sitting at 204 subscribers. We reached that first goal of 200. So in honor of that, what we're going to do, you better pay attention throughout this episode, because there's going to be a little something that I'm going to ask you all about. See what we said. We're going to do a little giveaway and it's going to be a merch item of your choice. So what you'll do is whoever gets the correct answer, and if there's more than one, we'll have to raffle it and see who gets it. But we'll give that. You go there, you'll pick which item you want. DM us on Twitter to let us know which item. I will get it to our program director and we'll get it out to you. So in honor of everything you guys have done for us, supporting us from day one, thank you so much. It's just our way of being able to give something back, and we have merch to give back. So it's worth it. You see Kenny's wearing one of the merch hats right there. And here is the red t-shirt, which you can also get in other colors. Got the logo right over here. And then on the back, of course, you just got the letters. The Husker Army Podcast. And you can get that in a different way. You can have the letters on the front with the logo big on the back. And we got different colors.
That's one I got.
Yep, I saw that, Matt, and I dug how big cool. That logo was.
Cool. It's the comfiest shirt I own right now. So
they are. They breathe. They stretch. They're not heavy.
I wear it to play golf.
I'll be wearing mine to the Pinnacle Golf Championship this next Friday. So
I will also. So I will be there representing.
Going to be worth it. It'll be another fun thing we get to do. So, all right. I think I plugged everything we need to plug, and we can finally roll into it. But, Coach, I mean, I had to bring it up. I brought it up off camera. I mean, you were a guest on the early break to start out with Jake and Sip. And now you're a permanent fixture, and the fans love it over on 93.7 The Ticket. So if you guys ain't checked it out, I don't know what you're thinking, what you're listening to, but you need to. It's weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. If you're not up that early, guess what? Check it out. You can find it anywhere on demand. So, Coach, how'd that come about, man? I mean, getting to see you and listen to you every day with Jake and Sip, it's great. It really is to hear your mind.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Like I was telling you guys off air, it's been an incredible, fun new adventure for me. But those guys, as I mentioned, those guys started that show 7-8 years ago. They've done such a great job with it. So what happened was I was just talking to Steve. We were texting back and forth a little bit. And I said, hey, you had a guest host on today. You didn't invite me, jokingly. I've never done radio in my life. And he goes, well, come in tomorrow. And so I came in that day, and then actually came back the very next day, I believe, and then just kind of got asked to be on there full time. And so, like I said, my example of this is that it's like I joined the Patriots after they already won 3 Super Bowls. And so they were already established, all the stuff were set up. I just kind of jumped on to try to help them maybe get one late type of a deal. But Jake Sorensen and Steve Sipple are just unbelievable professionals, and they've done for the show has been great for the state. And I'm just lucky to kind of be on there with them and having a good time.
I love it. And Kenny, you're kind of the same situation. You started as a guest for us on Scarlet and the Cream, and then once we rebranded to Husker Army, I approached you. You thought about it for a while, but yeah, here we are, another guest that has become a permanent fixture on the show.
Yeah, man, the transition was, it wasn't as painful as it would be for most people going into a lot of things.
It's pretty easy. I mean, as long as you can just talk.
Yeah, and
and love Husker football and love talking about it with everyone else.
Yeah,
that's a great situation. I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Good and the bad.
Well, we do appreciate it, Coach. And I needed to bring this up. I needed to look at the picture, the screenshot I took of it, because I wanted to make sure I got this absolutely correct. On the early break, 93.7 The Ticket, check it out if you guys haven't. You were quoted as saying, "This is the most anticipated football season in the history of college football." Can you elaborate on that? Is that just for Nebraska, or are you talking the college football land base in a whole?
Right.
Everyone as a whole. Yeah, there's never been one more anticipated in the history of college football, in my opinion. And I think that's kind of across the board. I know I said it, but I think people would agree with it pretty strong, just because, with everything going on with the transfer portal and with NIL and all how rosters have changed so dramatically. That's one thing. The next one is the realignment. Yep. Now that the Pac-12 is gone, and they had an incredible season last year, and to have that conference gone is horrific to me, but it is gone.
I agree.
So now these schools have all dispersed to other conferences, except obviously Washington State and Oregon State. But it changed big time the Big 12, and it changed the Big 10. And so that changed everything. And the next thing is 12 teams in a playoff, an automatic bid with a bye, home games in line for those who earn those. And so everything with it, it said generally, by when you're in the end of October, November time, you're going to have roughly about 8 to maybe 10 teams that are in the conversation for the Final Four. That's it. At this time, this next year, there'll be 50 teams that will be discussed to say, hey, they're in the picture for the playoffs. Well, they're sitting there right now. They're 6-2 or they're 5-3. But if they win out, if they do this, they can still have a chance at the playoffs. And I brought this up to Nebraska fans last year, right before the kickoff of the Wisconsin game, which was the second to last game. Nebraska was in the conversation to win the West. And then I think Iowa took care of business, however it was that they limited that. But that's how far it went in that conversation. Yep. And so there'll be so many more teams in the conversation with what's going on. So that anticipation of just trying to bring everything in at one time will be insane. Yeah. And so for that reason, that's why I think it's the most anticipated, because it's so new. This is just a different world of 12 teams. Like I said before, they used to just pick the winner by voting for it. Then they started to play for it. Then they expanded it to play for more. And then, like you said, now you have this with 12 teams. So it's just going to be, I think every fan will be very, very involved.
Now, Matt, Kenny, I wanted to ask you guys real quick, building on what Coach said here, especially about the 12-team playoff. I mean, we're looking at teams that now get to host first-round playoff games in their stadium. Now, let's think about this. Say Nebraska gets in there and they host a playoff game in Lincoln. These are going to be played in December.
Yeah.
What do you think it's going to be like to have maybe a Southeast team or a West Coast team come to Lincoln in December to try and play a game in that weather?
From my opinion, I think it'll be harder for the warmer climate teams to make that quick transition to the colder climates to play in the game. It's not like a bowl game where we were there almost 2 weeks to get acclimated to the weather. When we would go to the Orange Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl, and we'd be down there practicing, getting used to it. The Cook Pavilion at the time is what we had, they would turn the heat up and things like that to make us hot, make us sweat, make us get used to the heat before we went that way. But I agree with Coach. I mean, this season for me, you guys know I stay off the radar until it's football time, is going to be crazy, because you look at the realignment, you look at who's going where, you look at the way the bowl game is set up. I think this will probably be the most watched college football season in history coming this year with fan interest, from regional interest. It's just going to be crazy. But to have a home game, it's not anything new. They do it in the lower D1 conferences.
Yeah.
But to see the major D1 conference go to that format, it's great to see. But then it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Is there going to be regional bias? Is there going to be conference bias? You know, those type of things in which we've seen, which I think personally has shaped teams leaving their conference says to go to other conferences, because we all know it's been biased to one conference since they went to that playoff format.
We know, Feinbaum. We know. We've ranted about you for an entire week.
Yeah, and some conferences teams can get one loss and then they're out of it. Another conference teams can get 2 losses, but they're still ranked high enough in order to get into the playoff system. Back in our day, we used to call that the Florida State Miami rule. Let them lose one game and they're still going to be 1 or 2, regardless. It was going to be reason for their loss. But let Nebraska or one of us lose a game, then we're dropping from 2 to like 9 or 10 and having to climb our way back up. So hopefully this changes everything, because with those new people coming in, especially I'll say the Big Ten, you brought in some powerhouses. Mm-hmm. So those losses shouldn't take it as much of a hit as they would have in the past. So we'll see.
Matt, what about you? What would it be like having a playoff game in Lincoln, my man?
Oh, that would be ridiculous. It's that I don't care what anyone says. That's a massive added advantage. I mean, in Rule, I mean, he likes to coach in the cold outside.
Yes,
like,
he does.
get used to it because it's going to happen. And he even said, I mean, he had to get used to the cold weather and how you prepare for games. I mean, how strategically and everything. So, I mean, Alabama comes to Lincoln, Nebraska, something like that, or Georgia or Florida.
Yep. Those Southeast teams.
I get those kids. They don't want to play in the cold. But, well, you do it in the pros. I mean, what if you get drafted by New England? It's freezing cold in almost late October.
Buffalo. So you're going to deal with about 5 feet of snow.
That's different. I mean, we're coming out almost with no shirt on, with pads and ready to play, and these guys are, I mean, trying to just be warm. Well, there is no warm in Lincoln, Nebraska in December. It's cold. So
yeah,
I like it. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the new format. To me, it takes away from the bowl games, and I love the bowl games, but it's what it is, and everyone's got to get used to it. But it's more pro football to me than anything else now, but that's the way it is. So everyone get used to it.
Yeah, it's a new day and age in college football. It really is. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the 12 teams are chosen. I mean, you could, judging how the season goes, you could end up with a 4 or 5 loss team at number 12 because everybody else below them has had horrible seasons as well. It can happen. But what bothers me about that is, like you said, Matt, and you said, Kenny, the bias toward a certain conference. What are we going to seriously end up with like 6, 7 teams from that conference in there? After Rule got crucified for saying at least 4 from the Big Ten deserve to be in there, and not even necessarily saying Nebraska. Never once.
Right.
Never once said Nebraska deserved it.
No,
just said 4 teams.
They would if they could put them all in there. I mean, and Coach knows. He can't say it, but we all know. I mean, like I said, if you start the season and you look at the top 10, it might be 1 or maybe 2 possibly Big Ten teams, Michigan and Ohio State.
Yep.
The rest of 6 or 7 are going to be SEC teams. It has been for the last umpteenth years. So when that high and they're losing and they're playing one another, they're balancing it out. And what always happens at the end of the year, they're right here to say, hey, but look, they lost to this team. And it's for me personally, as a fan and as a former player, their lower end part of their conference never gets discredited like other conferences. You know what I mean? It was never, but hey, but this team is 4 and something.
But we're going to play a non-conference game the week before the rivalry games. It's like, what?
I mean,
I practice an extra practice pretty much against a light team.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't we get one of those this year, though? Like week 9 or so, don't we get a cupcake? I think we have a cupcake.
There's no more cupcakes in college football.
That is true.
Not in conference play. We don't get a cupcake. I mean, we're still playing a conference team. We play 9. They play 8. I know it's not fair.
I'm going to get roasted by people in comments if I don't bring this up because it was just yesterday. So, Coach, they had the open practice yesterday for fans to check out. I heard nothing but, for the most part, 95% great things on Twitter about it. I work overnight. I unfortunately could not attend, which sucks, but a lot of other people could. Were you able to attend that as well, Coach?
No, I was not able to attend. Jake went. Sorensen was there. I had an event I had to go to in Omaha last night. But Jake went there, took notes and stuff, so I'm looking forward to hearing. And we text back and forth this morning with a few things, but I haven't had great details on it. And I read a couple little things on it. It was very kind of generic, a few of the things I read. You know, I would, no matter what happened, we wouldn't imagine anything bad would really come out of it. I'm sure how practice was set up, but I push for people to go to the practice for a couple of reasons. One, if they get a chance, I said, if I was a high school football coach, there should have been 200 buses there because I would have taken my team just to watch how to practice, just to watch the structure of the organization, when the horn blows, how everyone moves, all the it's a great teaching experience because it's a shock. Kenny played at a high level in high school, but I'm sure when you got to Nebraska, so when you get to big time programs, from high school. Practice is different.
Absolutely.
How the pace is, what's going on, and everything about it. It's just like, wow, how different it is. So I really pushed for that. And then obviously I wanted to have the fans just to be able to see it. But then I was a fan of it for another reason, was if you show passion for it, it gives you an opportunity for that to be something that is posted for fandom, which means shows that, hey, we get a lot of people come just to not just to a practice, which is really cool to show, because recruits, no matter how you cut it, they want to play where people enjoy watching. They want to enjoy where the fans come, why Nebraska is so good for that reason. So I thought there's a lot of good reasons to it. And so I haven't gotten the fine details to it from someone that has been there. But I thought it was a great event and a really, really smart idea by 1890 to be able to do that.
And speaking of 1890, Coach, they've been doing a great job here as of late. Our new AD, Dannon, could I get your thoughts on him and what he's been doing as of late? Because it really seems like he's focusing most on trying with that NIL now. Wants Nebraska to be at the top. Wants to be in the talks.
We got to do it.
Yeah, I always struggle with when people ask me about other coaches, other people, when I haven't actually worked with them. And so so I never want to give a strong opinion, I guess.
Outside looking in, then maybe. Outside
looking in is just the thing that stands out the most is that he has embraced 1890. He's embraced the collective, embraced how important it is. And from outside looking in, it didn't feel like that was the same in the past. That's what it appears right now, that it's much more open, that like I said, with Coach Rule was always a big, obviously understood the importance of it. But I just think it's from the top down. I think it's very crystal clear that we have to have a strong collective, because even with the new ruling, in the House versus the NCAA, where you can pay athletes from your own budget, the collectives are still there.
Yep.
So it's still a collective world, which means, okay, every team can spend their $22 million, which is out of their own budget. But the Power Four will do that. But it's still above and beyond that, which means the collectives are still imperative of what's going on. It takes a little pressure off of them as far as the total amount, but it's still there. And so that's still very, very important. And like I said, with the backing of the Pede family and Sandhills Global, and also with Matt Davis, and they've done a great job.
I'd have to agree. What Dan has done since taking over, like you said, he's really embraced the 1890, the NIL, all of that. And all of the talks of renovations to Memorial Stadium is put on hold. I mean, forget all that. He's really trying to establish a connection, it seems, with players coming in, players and coaches that are here right now, and especially the fan base. And to me, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but to me, it just felt like Alberts just wanted to look good instead of making the connection. But that's like, as I said earlier, that's outside looking in. I didn't know him personally. I could just go by what I saw and what I heard.
Well, they're at a good spot right now because, when Dannon came in, 1890 was much more established than when Trev came in.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's a big difference for an advantage for him to be that. Again, I'm not picking sides on where that goes with athletic directors. I just know that when he came in and sat down, they're in a new building, they're in a new office. They've been doing a tremendous job for a couple of years now, because Jared Lambright started this, then it transferred into 1890, and Jared was so far ahead of the pace of everyone else. And so it was an incredible job by Jared to be ahead of everyone. That's why 1890 is ahead. And so it's a great situation for them to be able to do that. And the resources they have through the Pede family, through, as Matt talks about, just having the lawyers, just having all the infrastructure of a major company that they're able to lean on for everything that they need within the 1890 is remarkable.
Now, Matt, I wanted to ask you real quick, because I know, Kenny, like you said, you tried to not pay attention to any of all the hoopla going on up until the season actually kicks off. So I think it'd be safe to assume you probably didn't pay too much attention to the open practice yesterday.
Oh yeah, I did.
Well, I know you did, Matt.
I wanted to
Matt,
go.
I know you did. I was just figuring
stuff,
Kenny probably just sat back and said, you know what, I'll wait. So,
This is the first time I heard about it. You guys talking about it.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
okay, Matt.
I tuned it all out.
Matt, you had paid close attention to it.
Oh yeah.
Give me your thoughts on it, man. What are you thinking?
I mean, the highlights, of course, is Dylan Raiola. I mean, everyone says, of course, he's clear cut number one. Thanks for telling me something I already knew. I watched it in the spring game, so I mean, I didn't need any information about that. It's pretty clear cut, but Rule wants everyone to compete the way it should be. That's a no brainer. We're stacked at wide receiver.
Yeah,
from everything I hear. I mean, there was a lot of players that were held out, of course.
Sounds like all running backs sound really
nothing
shifty.
Outrageous. I mean, what? Henry Lutovsky, he's out a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but the only negative I really heard was just punting.
Yeah.
The punting was not up to par. And I heard a lot of comments about how it looks like a high school punter out there.
Mm-hmm.
But that was honestly about the only downfall that I honestly heard.
A kicker.
Now, Kenny, you'll like this, though, to pivot on the kickers. Our two place kickers, if I'm not mistaken, they were hitting some from beyond 50.
47 is what I heard.
Okay. Hey, that's all right. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's just like, oh, God.
You know how I feel about kickers.
Yep.
Don't even get me started. Kick the ball, buddy. You're not out there getting smacked upside the head like the rest of us. Kick the ball.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen some recruits there, but I didn't hear anything about that at all.
That's okay.
From what I heard, are we in a dead period or
you're in a period?
Are kids allowed?
Okay,
they can't be there.
Gotcha. Okay,
Coach,
that makes a lot more sense.
Yes. Coach, all honesty, I'm so confused, and this is another reason why Bryan pre-referenced that point about me not paying attention. It seems to me now that I'm glad you said that, because from when stuff pops up on my social media and things like that, it seems like there's no dead period. I'm always hearing about kids being this weekend in Lincoln. It's like 24/7, 365. Is there still big dead periods like it used to be?
There are periods. They feel like they're less, Kenny. But there are periods which is tough, because the situation is this. It's okay. When can you have kids come on campus? And at some point in time, the staff / administration needs a break, where it's just like, how do we function and how do we focus on the team that's here?
Right.
And then it's also hard to tell someone that wants to come on their own dime that they can't come on campus. Well, you still can come on campus. This one, to be honest with you, there probably could have been recruits there if they bought the ticket and went and watched. It just wasn't hosted by the Husker staff. Would be the way to look at it. But they would still, you can still come on campus. There's, like, as Kenny would know, you can drive onto campus at any time. There's no, you don't come through a gate, so you can be on campus at any time. Now, can you go into the football complex? No, and you can't. No, you can't have that contact. You could actually be there, so it makes it really. It makes it really hard. For a while there, that didn't even take place at all. I remember being, my parents had a 50th wedding anniversary, and then I got a phone call that one of the top tight ends, in the country that I was recruiting out of California was coming through Lincoln at that time, and then so I had to miss a good part of their event because I stayed back because he was coming to town. I wasn't like, oh, wish I was here. I got my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, so I can't. So, bummer, but hope you enjoy it while you're here. No, I stayed till he was there, and so that was part of it. That's why it's in July, where it's like finally the staff can leave the building for a little bit of time to be able to have that moment to be able to get it done. So there's a lot to it, obviously, but it's a difficult job, because college football, in the NFL, you coach your talent or you obtain the talent. There's two separate divisions. That's why you have the personnel division, you're coaching like that. In college, you're still you're the ones that are going to you obtain the talent and you also develop the talent. You're the main recruiter of the talent. And you're the one that's to go out and make sure that you have the right players, and you're the lead recruiter, with the head coach being a big part of it, obviously. And then also you have to coach them. NFL, you talk to those guys, maybe the head coach, but the Chiefs, linebacker coach isn't walking into the down to the war room saying, this is the guy I want you guys to draft next. Like, we got it. We got it. Works on
and
this.
then under the new transfer rule, I mean, you have to keep recruiting your own players.
Yeah, there's a lot to
your
it.
Own players that are on your own roster now. Because let's just face it, there's tampering. There is. I mean, Fedoni even said it. He had numerous other college coaches. He's not in the portal, but they were trying to get him to jump, and he didn't. So you have to recruit your own players now after the season's over, and that is ridiculous.
It's hard. I like that we're talking recruiting too, because Coach, you've been a part of recruiting since early 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
Early 90s. Yeah, I would have been on the road in the early 90s. Yep.
At what point during your coaching career did you really see the shift as to how recruiting is done compared to then to now?
Well, it went from, like I used to always say, it changed about 4% every year. And then one year it changed 80% at one time. That's about how you look at it. That's about how you look at the change. Every year there's always there'd be a small tweak. Something in the spring would be different. You could go back, whatever it was. There'd just be a small, and you'd be like, all right, whatever. Okay, sounds good. And you just move on and keep doing your thing. Where now it's quite a bit different. It's also because of social media. It is also way, way more of a head coaching recruiting job. Back in the day, the head coach was always a big part of it. He was the closer. The position coach handled, the big part of the recruiting. Kenny, you can probably add to that, during your recruiting of how it was handled. But now everyone, because they're available, all the players, they're like, they want to talk to the head coach like daily. And the head coach takes over certain guys. And he's like, that's my guy. Those are my guys. I'll recruit. You're helping him. So there's a difference in the structure of that, of how that works, because they're available. Now, like I said, head coaches directly DM / text / FaceTime with the recruits. So they have full access to the head coach. Wow. And so when they text that coach and they're, one of those top recruits, they're going to expect a response. And so the head coaching recruiting part, it becomes much more the head coach was always involved. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sure Kenny can tell like that when he was being recruited that he probably didn't talk to Coach Osborne on a daily basis, but he did talk to his whatever is the position coach recruiting him at that time a lot.
Who was Ron Brown? So I talked to him a lot. I spoke to Coach Osborne a couple times, but not like they're doing now. I just think with the way we have with social media and the outlets we have, that the way these kids are now, and the way that I would say society has put it, that they need to show you, they need to show you, they need to show you.
Yeah.
That it's like, hey, because I think a lot of them starve, me personally, you guys hear me talk about it all the time, starve for that attention. As they'll tell you, Coach, Matt and Bryan will tell you, I get annoyed when the kids put stuff on social media about who's recruiting them and who's the last schools. It's coming down to them. And it's maybe because my personality was different. I was just like, okay, yeah. There's people who didn't know all of these other schools were recruiting me until I show them a box. Yeah. And today it's just like the need to show everyone. It's like needy attention. So I couldn't imagine being a coach, honestly, in today's age and the way college football is, and dealing with kids. I just, God bless you. I couldn't do it.
It's insane time consuming. I was able to be part of it all. And so I went all the way through the new changes with it. But like I said, you always had, my wife would know, you always had two phones, and one's your recruiting phone.
Wow. And
if that thing goes off at 2 a.m. or whatever like that, it would ding, or phone would ring or whatever like that, I'd respond. So you were basically available, 24/7. So it's tough on the family.
Yeah.
But the one thing I always say, which is I'm crystal clear about, is that I chose the profession. And so when you choose it, that's different. You knew I knew what I was getting into, hours and times and all that stuff. So that's what I chose it. So I don't feel real bad. It's hard, but at the same time, but that's also why you see a major push for people wanting to be in the NFL, because like I said, you actually have time off. There is no recruiting. There's free agency and you're involved in some parts of it, but nothing like it is recruiting where sometimes you'll start on kids when they're, freshmen in high school. You hear all the stuff about eighth grade. I don't care about that. It really gets real when they become sophomores. That's kind of when all's said and done, you kind of tell, I think this guy's, is pretty good. Because sometimes, those guys some guys just develop faster. And all of a sudden they kind of plateau out a little bit. And all of a sudden it's like, man, they're freshmen, they're unbelievable. And all of a sudden they're seniors and everybody else is kind of caught up to them. But you're on them for a long time, and when you lose a player, you just lost him. If you go out and work on your house every day for 3 years, it'll look better. You work it for 3 hours, 3 years on a young man, and at the end he chooses somebody else. It's just wasting time. Because it's not like next time. I'm not going to recruit that guy the next time. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. So it's just time wasted. That's all it is. So I got a lot of banked hours.
Yep.
Now, one question I did have for you, Coach, and I would never ask anybody to divulge any dirt or anything like that, but you were part of the staff in probably one of the most tumultuous years in recent Nebraska history in 2022. I've got to ask, what was that season like? Everything that we talked to Nick Henrich a couple weeks ago. He let us know from a player's standpoint. What was it like as a coach's standpoint?
Yeah, obviously I'm a big fan of Nick. Honestly, it was one of my most enjoyable seasons ever. I had not been there for just, I'd just gotten full-time status for a short period of time. And it just started off being the special teams coordinator, which was awesome because the kids, like I said, give them credit. They really flipped the table from where we'd been. And that's all credit on them. And they just done a tremendous job with the special teams. And then the coaching changed after game 4. And then Coach Mickey took over, his great friend of mine. We're together at LSU. And obviously when he would play here, I was a graduate assistant. But after that, it was probably the most enjoyable because they could have easily cashed it in and no one did. And so that's just, there's a lot of times that probably means more than anything else. Just the fact that, they played so hard and every week they were, remarkable with their efforts. You came out, I remember my first meeting because Coach Joseph asked me, he said, would you, consider being the defensive coordinator? And I said, absolutely not. I said, I want nothing to do with that. I said, I haven't been, I've coached defense my whole life, but here I've just done the special teams. I said, and I go, I'll get this. This is going to be on me. All of a sudden now, we just played 4 games and we played bad teams and we'd gotten crushed. And I go, this is not going to be good. And he goes, well, I appreciate that, but you're the defensive coordinator. But the coaching staff, I had a great conversation with them and the kids were remarkable. And so we had a lot of fun. But I remember the first meeting in Indiana with the broadcasters come in and talk to you. And McMillan was the one doing the game, I think it was Big Ten Network at the time. And he goes, Billy goes, you guys, how can you guys, slow these? How are you guys going to have any chance in this game? And I gave them the reasons why and stuff. They were a high tempo team. They were the fastest team in college football. So we gave them the reasons why and stuff, and then came out and held them to 14 points and won at Rutgers. And they had a bunch of close games and won at Iowa. But the thing was the kids just bought in. And people always say, well, how'd you know you'd be able to have a chance to beat Iowa? I said, because the walkthrough that morning was incredible. They could have just been a cashed in group. So it was one of my most memorable seasons. And I've been a part of, a ton of championships, Big 8 championships, been to Orange Bowls, won a national championship at LSU, and I've been to Mountain West Championship and all the different places I've been and just had so many cool things happen. And that was one of my best moments, was being part of that team because of just how they hung together. So it wasn't and the reason it hung together now was because of Nick, because of Luke Reimer, because of all those guys that were just dudes. and they just came to work and just didn't look, and they just bought in, and they were bright-eyed, and they were, ready to play. And so it was so easy that way. So as a Husker fans, while you'll look back at that year because of the change and Coach Frost getting let go and all those things of being, a miserable time, you should be probably as proud of that group because of the fight that they stayed. So when you see those guys like that, be proud of them because they were put in a bad spot, and me and Mickey got kind of thrown into a difficult spot, with it, and made the best of it. And so very proud of those young men during that time.
You ask me, I think what most fans will probably remember from that season and makes it memorable is taking out Iowa at the end of the season. I mean,
Kids played well.
That's how you end a season like that.
That performance by Trey Palmer is just still to this day in my head, just phenomenal.
It was, and they were playing to go to the Big Ten championship game, so it was. So they had a lot on the line to win that game, obviously, and that's a fun place to play. That's a fun stadium to go play at. The fans are right on top of you, so it's a great venue. So it was a lot of fun. But Husker fans, be proud of that group for that reason of what they did. And I was, like I said, just blessed to have been part of it.
Absolutely, they could have phoned in the rest of it.
Yeah, I think I said the same thing the last show. I was like, that was just a turmoil when all of that took place, and the way the kids responded. And the coaching staff had to respond because no one wants to be in that situation.
No,
kids, coaches, families. It's just, and I appreciated when Coach Joseph gave the press conference and he was like, people lost jobs. This affects families. This affects kids. So have some understanding of that. And I think for me, the way you guys responded, Coach, and the way the kids responded, it made a lot of us, as you know how it is, we're proud former alumni. We were so happy because they could have tanked, like you said, and to see them respond, to see the way that they were playing, to see the way that they were flying, to see the way that these kids were caring about their season and continuing and doing the best that they could was one of my best Nebraska football moments. Honestly, watching it.
And they were that way top to bottom in meetings, everything they did, how they carried themselves, how they practiced, everything they did. And probably one of the more remarkable things you'll see, because usually that last game probably could have easy, a lot of places would have been a 45-6 game.
Yeah.
It would have been just hey, we don't want to be here. When's this thing over? What time's our flight home? And whatever. And like I said, when we had our walk through that morning, it was, they were that way the whole time. So like I said, just really lucky. So Husker fans, be proud of that group. And like I said, and then a lot of those guys that played on that day, they're still playing now. There's a lot of guys, that played in that game, Ty did that, and Nash was playing a bunch in that game, and Gifford and all these guys that were all playing that Buford was hurt at that time. But a lot of these guys playing, like I said, currently right now, we're still there. So it's a good deal.
Yeah, I believe, Matt, was that the game where Trey Palmer tweeted that morning that he woke up pissed off?
Yeah, he did that a couple times that season. Don't get me wrong, but
that's one that worked.
The Iowa game was one of them. So, but their effort on the field that day, I mean, just like Coach said, they easily could have just packed it in. Like, let's just get the new coach, move into the off season, and get ready for the following season. They didn't, and that's what I love about the team that we have this year. Right? I honestly think that they're ready. They know and want to win for Husker Nation, and
they'll do a great job this year.
It's going to be a different team this year, and that's what I appreciate the most, especially from watching like the On 3 and just it's just, oh God, I want to run through a brick wall just thinking about it.
I forgot to put the picture in there from Tommy Hill that he tweeted out. Kenny, you even liked what he did there. Oh, we lost Matt there first. I'm sure he'll be right back. But he had tweeted out that it was something along the lines of, the time to win is now. No sympathy.
He's right. He ain't lying. You see, I put that on there. He ain't lying.
That is a great mentality. You're good, Matt.
I hit the back button on accident.
Yeah, it was like I was telling Kenny there, Matt, what Tommy Hill had tweeted out. The time to win is now. No sympathy.
Yeah, that's every day. That's how I go about my life. It's time to win every day.
All right, let's see. We're getting to about the 45-minute mark. Coach, I told you we only try to go about an hour, so I don't want to keep you too long. So we'll go ahead and get to the questions we got from Twitter. And there's only 3 of them, but they're from 3 great people on Twitter. The first one I had to give out, Matt, we're going to be having him on with us the day after the first game against UTEP. And that would be the heart and soul of Husker Nation itself, Chris, a.k.a. Mr. Happy. So here's the question for you, Coach. Hey, ask Bill Busch this question. What is it like being a defensive coordinator? Thank you for the question, King Chris, Mr. Happy. What do you think, Coach? What was it like being a defensive coordinator? You said you didn't want it to begin with.
Yeah. You know, I fortunately, I'd done it before, and there's some things with it that there's a lot. First thing I always laughed about was the, Kenny being an offensive guy, but every rule change in the last 30 years has been on to help offense. So everybody wants more points. And so but you're still expected to always, don't hit the quarterback, don't do this, don't do that, but don't let them score. And then things, so the game changes so dramatically with tempo and different things in the coaches and what they're doing. But I enjoy, obviously, the relationships the most. When you get a chance, I like being in front of the team. It sounds arrogant, but I feel that's one of my strengths is being in front of the team. I've been around great ones, obviously here, just being here so long with Charlie McBride, just what it was like being in front of the team. And so that was a part that I really enjoy. And then your meticulous preparation will carry over to they get confidence when they know what you know, when they know that coach has a plan and his idea, it's not play harder. I said, we got to play harder. It's like, coach, we need some adjustments, whatever has to happen. We have some things to be able to connect with them. I always like being some coordinators were in the press box, which I like because it takes emotions out of calling a game. Mm-hmm. But sometimes also you like to be able to go down like I'd go talk to here wherever it be, Nebraska, Barrett. I go talk to the linebackers. I go talk to the D line. I say this is what's coming next series. Look for this. Look for this. Here's some things you're going to do. And if you have it extremely well prepared and your walkthrough is so good in that area, and you have all the details covered, they just get confidence in you, and that becomes a lot of fun. And so that's the part that I really enjoy, to have that and having a plan for it. To give these guys credit, we played Iowa, and it was a short week. We made a lot of major changes to their third down package, stuff that we hadn't done. It worked out extremely well. Remember there was like a sack fumble that we picked up. Yep. Simple things to their empty package. They ran a lot of empty. So a 5-wide look, it wouldn't be all 5 wides, but they went into empty a lot. So we put a entirely new defense in for it. And that's hard to do when it's like we're just the last game, coach. We had this, and they took it all in.
That's a gutsy move.
When you're able to have those kids buy it. I did it for that reason, because I knew we had great kids.
And simplified it as much as humanly possible also.
Yeah.
Especially in a short week. So
yeah, it's fun to be up in front of them, to be part of that relationship, to be in touch with them, with all those players is a lot of fun to have that phase. And it's also, it's a little bit it's not as easy for your wife. It's a little harder when you're the one in front of it like that. They'll do that, but she handled it well too.
Well, there you go, King Chris, a.k.a. Mr. Happy. I hope he answered it in any possible way you could have hoped for. And thanks for the question, my man. Love interacting with you on Twitter. You, like I said, you're the heart and soul of Husker Nation, man. You're always positive. You have nothing but great things to say about this program, about the fan base. And as I've told you on Twitter before, Husker Nation loves you for who you are, and so never change. Never change, my man. Thank you so much for that question. All right, we'll move right along. Next one would be from, I believe it's Ken from Generation Red, a Husker podcast. Coach, he asked Coach Busch if Coach Rule reached out for advice on coaching in the Big Ten.
I had a couple conversations with Coach Rule. We didn't really have conversations on Big Ten exactly, or what your thoughts were. I ran into him at a social event, and he was super kind to me as far as saying, that the one thing he discussed with his staff was we don't have a defensive problem because just turn the film on, they watch film, and he could just see that that wasn't an issue. And so he was very respectful to that. And so I always appreciate him for that. But no, we didn't have any detailed conversations on the Big Ten, but it's like anything else, and it happens everywhere. Just when you think for a second, it's like, yeah, we'll be fine. You will be fine, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to when it's new. And the advantage of in some place where you've been in a league where you have repeat teams you played, Kenny can go down to the teams that they played every year, and you had a feeling for what you just knew what you were in for. And so when you don't know what you're in for, sometimes you just gain knowledge from being in that league. And there's, that's what will come up for these 4 new teams coming in the league this year. It's going to be, yes, but they've never been in the league. And at the same time, the league doesn't know them near as well either. So it's always very interesting. But it's, all leagues are, but the Big Ten and the SEC, I use the term all the time on air, mass kicks ass. And the difference in these leagues is you're just going to get thick bodies up front, and that's the difference in the leagues is what they look like up front. And that's the part. So the physicality part, you're still going to see tight ends, multiple tight ends. You still see downhill run game, all those things. So there's still some old school to the Big Ten, and so to be prepared for that, they will. And like I said, those guys are extremely experienced coaches. So I anticipate nothing but great things from Coach Rule and his staff.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Ken. Hope he answered it to everything you were hoping for as well, and I appreciate the question. Man, you guys are awesome. As always, Ken, thank you for everything. And we'll get to the last one right here. This one's I believe it's a 2-parter, a little bit of a longer question. But there's a reason for this. If you ever get the chance, Coach, there's a young man named Ben Audi, Coach BA. He's just started up a Husker podcast not long ago. Great football mind, has been coaching high school football for a while. Knows the ins and outs, the X's, the O's, everything about it. He reads formations.
Right.
I mean, his mind is crazy. If you ever get the chance, I would seriously suggest joining him sometime. He's an amazing guy to be on with. And you guys could probably bounce things off your minds that there's no way I could have brought it up. So we'll get to his question right here. Coach BA, this is what he's got for you. Questions for Coach. You've coached all over the country, including some other Big Ten schools. What makes Nebraska different? And part 2, please help give an inside look for the outside world. What did your role look like as an analyst as opposed to a coach on staff?
Oh, it's great question. I would say, what stands out for Nebraska, obviously there's been this tradition, but what stands out the most for Nebraska now, and my time going way back into the 90s with it, which was established back in the 60s, I would still say the number one thing is the fan base. That's probably the thing that stands out the most because it's got a ridiculous fan base and also has hung in there through hard times on some things like that. And they still have the sellout, still have this podcast, has all these, that luckily they have a bunch of past players in history, which is incredible, going all the way back to Coach Devaney when things really got started. But the fandom is the part that is the difference. That's where we say, okay, what's the difference between, a lot of schools? That's the part that's different. When you go to certain places, a lot of places would be, completely checked out. If you played at some schools in the same situation, it would be half full. There'd be no one there. Yeah. And so, and the care factor is still there. And so I think that's what I say enjoy the most, but the part that I can just say definitely defines the difference. There's always been, when we were the originals kind of in strength and conditioning. We were one of the originals in this and all the different things that went down. The fans are the biggest difference at Nebraska, and that's what they should be the most proud of. And when you have history, you can get back to history. Kenny probably heard of people walking by him during testing time because Kenny could run really well, being like, I got to get back to 4.4. And you're like, back to 4.4? When did you ever run a 4.4? It happens to some guys like that. Well, Nebraska they can talk about oh, you know, we can get him back because they have history.
Yeah.
And they've done it in the past. When you've done things in the past, you have a great chance. You know, when Saban came to Alabama, they weren't rolling. He came there, hired the coach. You know, so but Alabama had great what? Had great history. Yeah. So Pete Carroll went to USC. It was horrible.
Oh,
he's like their third choice. These guys didn't even take the job.
Right.
what they did. So but what they have, they'd been there before. They had history. So Nebraska has that history, and so it gives them a great chance. But that the fans have held that together. Yeah, and that's been the difference. I think it's one of the biggest differences of the two teams trying to get back right now between Nebraska and Miami. Is that, you know, a lot of times you'll see the Miami. You know, there's 20,000 people there.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
And so that's a difference. So the fans are the biggest difference. And analysts, the biggest thing is stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. I've worked with a lot of analysts also when I was the position coach. I only did the analyst thing, you know, for a little bit. But when your name's not on it, and they're not writing about you in the paper, but you want to have all the ideas and the different things, and you want to be at that, just stay in your lane. And so that's what I did. I stayed in my lane. I offered information when needed. I always stayed ahead of a game, so I was able to talk to very intelligently on Sunday about here's things I see. Here's what this can help you start your preparation faster, all the little things. Or if I have something of an idea, and I learned this through experienced coaches, if you're sitting around, if someone said they'll listen to anything if you've done your research. And it's like, I think we should do this. And those ideas, like I talked about, like we did at that Iowa game for the change-ups, I had history of it and I had film of it. And I had diagrams of it, of all the things we were going to do and the why. But when someone just throws something out there like that, I think we should do this. Have you researched it? Have you done your study? When was this done? Show me film when this has worked, or some idea of why it might. And so the biggest thing is to know your role as an analyst. And this is what my role is. And I'm here to do that. And I would speak when spoken to, even though I had 30 some years of experience. You know, I wasn't coming in with like, I think we ought to think about this or whatever. I would try to do that and just be as professional as possible in the building. And like I said, I didn't have a lot of experience of doing it, but I did know when I did it for a brief time before I became a full-time coach at Nebraska, I did know what I didn't like when I had to work with other analysts, other places that wanted to and also at the same time, you have to put in work. You don't need a guy that's just sitting around drinking coffee, throwing out ideas. Why, like, you know, put the time in, do the work, do the film work, do all the studies, make the cut-ups, all those things. That's what someone wants to help at that time. So there's a lot to it. And those who can manage them well, it works. And those who can't manage them well, Mr. the head coach, it doesn't work. And that's why Nick Saban was the best at bringing guys in, because it was very clear who was in charge of the team. Nick Saban was in charge of the team, and then he knew what their roles were, and they knew very clearly what their roles were also. But that's how it works as an analyst, in my opinion.
Yeah, Nick Saban wasn't going to play that mess.
No,
we all know that.
You figure out, like I said, and if I did have ideas, I did them very privately, one-on-one. I just said, hey, I have a couple thoughts if it interests you. And if they're like, you know what, I just don't, not right now, I'd be like, not a problem. And so, or they might, I'd talk to someone privately, and then it might be like, and sometimes it might be like, you know what, that's interesting. Could you present that to the staff this afternoon? And then I would, in a good way. But yeah, just kind of stay in your lane, stay back, and work really hard, and just keep your head down. And and also at the same time, you better be a real dude and not be trying to take somebody else's job. Sometimes it can be, you don't want to be the guy behind the scene, you know, looking at the head coach with like, oh, well, palms up. I don't know what they're doing. I wouldn't have done that. It's like, that ain't how it works.
Right.
You know, you're a support team, and you better act like it.
Well, right BA, I hope you enjoyed that answer, because I would say he more than answered both questions for you there. But thank you for the question, my friend. All right, we're getting right down to it. We'll go ahead and open this up. We'll give you each one question. I'm fresh out of questions. They've all been asked already. So, Matt, let's start with you. What would be a burning question you got for the coach?
Oh, of course, recruiting. It's just like I know some of the players, of course, that followed you for a long time about the players you have recruited, like Prince and Mukamara, obviously the last first rounder for us. But what is your normal pitch when you have to sit down in front of these kids and to get them to try and come, especially to a cold weather state, Nebraska, stuff like that? It just I've always been curious about what is the idea behind getting them to come to Lincoln, Nebraska.
The first thing I tried to create, and recruitment was something that went well for me. I tried to create likability right away, and so likability right away meant that if you could create some form of likability with the recruit and his family, then they would answer the phone when you called again or text you. They gave you a chance to start with it, and so the likability factor was so good. And I have a ton of stories of where I end up getting back in on guys late that maybe my logo didn't match up with them. And there's always a logo matchup with who you're talking to and where they fit or how they perceive how they fit. And so I had a lot of things fall backwards for me from just having the likability and the care factor for them. And the same way with the family, I was talking to there's a big group I had out of Arizona one year that was really a good group. And I was talking to one of those players the other day, and he said, the first time you came in with my family, because it was everybody was on him, and he goes, you were there for about 3 hours and left and just said, we'll be back next week. And he said, you never even talked about football. Didn't talk about the plan for me. Didn't talk about any of these things. We just talked about this. And he goes right away, Mom and Dad said, we want Coach Busch to come back. So that was always the goal, to try to. So the spiel, the this, the that, there was nothing magic to it. Like that. It's like you just want to make them really, really hard for them to tell no. They didn't want to call you up and tell type of thing. So that was your number one goal, but just to get in tight with them. But you wanted to make sure and then know the whole thing, the power structure of. It's, who's making the decision? It's actually grandma. It's actually grandpa. It's going to be this, what the setup is when you go in there, having that set up when you walked in, because the head coach can only go to the house once and you can go a bunch of times. So Coach Osborne only came to Kenny's one time. And so you better have him set up. And then, which means like when you walk in, there's going to be this in the house. You're going to be this over here. There's going to be a big aquarium, and they love their aquarium. And make sure you ask them a question about this or whatever. All these details you had to have for these people of every little thing, when you were going through it, to have all those things. And then they would figure it out again if you had your details somewhat right, and I had an interesting story. I was recruiting a young man that ended up being a really good player for us at Wisconsin when I was at Wisconsin. But he's a junior college player, and there's a bunch of schools that were after him. And I remember that a bunch of schools, Florida, West Virginia, different schools that were after him at the same time. They'd all came up for their home visit and stuff. Well, he had to have 6 hours of junior college to finish his degree to be eligible to go. But he got 2 Ds, and 2 Ds didn't transfer, which they didn't transfer from the junior college. They didn't allow him. The C only could transfer from where he was at. And so I kind of got filibustered that night by West Virginia and Dana Holgerson. And they were in there talking to him till late. So I didn't get in the house until about 10:15 at night. And so we were sitting there talking about the stuff and everything. And he said, he goes, now you're all correct with this. You have your 2 classes you have to take. And he says, yes, 2 classes I have to take. And I said, well, are you aware you had 2 Ds on this that are non-transferable? And it was kind of like Mom and Dad kind of looked like, what are we talking about? And I said, and the kid nodded his head like, yes, I do know those are D's now. And I said, so you need 12 hours. I said, and here's the classes you're going to take. And I already had his classes done for him. I said, you're going to call this person. You're going to take these 2 classes online. You're going to call this number. Here's the price it's going to be. Here's what you're going to have to pay. Tomorrow, have your credit card out. The class starts tomorrow afternoon to get these classes done. And I said, I'm sure there's other schools. I'll discuss this with you also. So I'm sure you already have a plan for this. And they were like, no one had talked about it. And Mom and Dad are like, we're going to Wisconsin. And,
wow.
And so just
Details matter.
Of having the stuff down when you get to it like that, and ended up being a really good player for Wisconsin. And we scored a touchdown against Nebraska when Melvin Gordon ran for 400 some yards. And,
that's crazy.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks.
And he played several years in the NFL. But just having some details down on that kind of matters.
Is there any way? Is that a player you want to keep secret, or is that a name you can drop?
What's that?
The player you're talking about.
I'm sure he wouldn't mind. So I talked about it's Tanner McAvoy, and Tanner ended up being a starter for. He was so talented. He was the starting quarterback and also the starting safety in the same year, and then he went to the Seattle Seahawks and started and then made the team as a wide receiver. So that kind of tells you what his skill set was like. He's at a Bergen Catholic High School in New Jersey. Guys are recruiting him out of Arizona Western. And,
that's funny because Fremont here, my hometown, we have a Bergen Catholic High School as well.
Yep. And the funny story about that was I tried to recruit him earlier, but my logo didn't allow it. And I just changed jobs from Utah State to Wisconsin. And I had to go. I was speaking I had to go to an event in Nashville for the coaches convention. So I go to that, and I'm getting on a plane at 6 o'clock in the morning in Nashville, and his head coach, Coach Mimic at Arizona Western, was there kind of half asleep. And I'm like, Coach, what's up? And he goes, oh, just this and this like that. And I said, hey, whatever happened to McAvoy? Where do you sign? He goes, he's not signed yet. He's probably gonna go to wherever, whatever. And I said, is there any chance does he have a visit left? He goes, he's got one. I said, but I don't think he's going to take it. And I said, who do I talk to? He said, Tina, his mom. I said, do you have a phone number? He goes, I got a number. So as soon as I landed in Madison, I called the number, and Tina answered, and I said, don't hang up. That's all I said. I said, don't hang up. And she just started laughing. She goes, who are you? I said, my name's Bill Busch. I just got hired at the University of Wisconsin. And I talked to her for about an hour. They agreed to talk to me that night. Next weekend, we got him on a trip, and then that's when the rest of the story took place from there.
Jeez.
So sometimes chance meetings. I would have never even called him if I wouldn't have been on that airplane that day.
Right.
And so weird stuff happens like that. So it's kind of fun.
Well, it was kind of the same thing with Rule and Company with Malachi Coleman. He looked like he was going to jump ship when Mickey was.
I thought he was heading to Colorado.
Yep.
I honestly did. So
first thing Rule and Company did, get a hold of Malachi.
In front of Ferraris and Lambos, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Prime time.
That's not recruiting. That's called flash, and in my opinion, that's laziness. But
I'm not getting started.
Again, I have my own opinion about that.
Yeah, we'll never get out of here if we start on Colorado. I won't stop.
I'm the same.
It's pure hatred. Pure hatred.
Never stop.
All right, Kenny, did you have a burning question for the coach before we get ready to shut her down?
No, I think Coach just answered a lot, all in the question with what Matt asked. I mean, a lot of times I don't think people understand recruiting is about relationships. Recruiting is about, during my time is different now, but as coach, I mean, it's about the recruit's ability to relate to the coach that's recruiting him, and them saying that they genuinely care.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people say, oh, they go to play for the school. No, you go to play for this coach first, then that school. Because that's your first relationship, especially if you're a kid that's from out of state.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's just an awesome story to hear, because that's showing that, hey, I see what's going on. This is how I can help you get to where you want to get.
Yep.
There's been a lot of times where people have dropped the ball in recruiting. And I say that from personal experience. I mean, let's be honest. Like I told you guys, Nebraska wasn't my first choice. I was going to University of Miami. Yep. I didn't have my test scores. So every school in the country is here. They're calling. I didn't have my test scores. Nebraska was the one that stayed consistent. So
thank God. Then
the moment I got my test score back, hey, and you have to understand, this isn't only football. This was basketball too. So they all, hey, well, basketball, we have this amount of scholarships. Football, hey. And then, if you go to JUCO, don't play, but then come in and, et cetera, et cetera. Like I told you, my dad was like, hey, like Coach said, it's going to be someone else with the kid making that decision. My dad was like, son, they stayed consistent with you. They never stopped recruiting you.
Yep.
I think that's where you should go. You know me, oh, daddy, come on, they're not throwing the ball, bro. Come on, But the point is that relationship that not only did they built with me, Coach Brown and Coach Osborne built with me, but the relationship they built with my parents. That was a big deal. And Coach doing that and speaking to the mom and then sitting there and being forthright and saying, hey, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it to get where you want to get. If you don't think parents appreciate that when it's genuine and it's not the come in sales pitch, people, you're mistaken. Because they're going to look at that and say, here's a place that generally needs my son or daughter, whichever sport. And I really think you should consider going there. And they're going to be more comfortable with that child, that kid going there than they would with a place that just coming in, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we can use you. You know, because some schools say, oh, we got this amount of people and, you know, you might play. You might. Okay, you're just stocking up, you know, stacking recruits. You're not really into me. You're the idea of having me on the team with the rest of your players. So, I mean, that was good to hear because it's true. And I don't think a lot of people hear many stories of that side of recruiting. They just see, oh, he signed this kid, he came in, we visited, blah, blah, blah. No, it's relationships. And that makes a huge difference on how people go to schools, especially when you say a kid from Arizona like me. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. It's a nuclear outside right now. And you're sending me to, I'm going to Nebraska where it's cold. I mean, that's huge. I can literally drive 10 minutes from Arizona. I stayed 10 minutes from Arizona State. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
And their history was rich under Coach Cush.
Yeah.
But, you know, to have that and the way they were consistent, oh, man. That's
recruiting
awesome.
still matters even with the NIL because when it gets down to everyone where they fit. So everyone you're recruiting has NIL situations about in the same area at another school. So it's still recruiting. You know, it's not just, well, it's just NIL. It's just NIL. You put together a package. It's the best financial package. That's what it is. Because you're not recruiting someone that, however that works out, that all of a sudden that they're going to get paid this much more to school. It's all pretty comparable. If you're getting recruited by Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Nebraska, those schools, everything's pretty. So you still have to recruit. Yeah. The recruiting part factors in. It's not NFL. NFL's different. Free agency. These guys are offering, you know, this money. These guys are offering this money. And I know that probably better to go here. That's a lot more money. I'm going there. That's it. There's still recruiting that matters. So it'll always be a factor in college football. Recruiting will always factor into what has to happen, even with the NIL situation.
Yeah, and to quickly add on to what you said, Kenny, and you as well, Coach, when it comes to creating a relationship as a recruiter to a potential player, we had Malcolm Simpson, who is a recent defensive line commit to Nebraska, on with Nick Henrich, and asking him what made his decision easy. He said it was flat out Coach Knighton. Coach Knighton is a total reason he's coming here because he felt that connection immediately. He felt like he was talking to more of a father figure than anybody else that he had talked to at that point. So
like
I can attest,
coach. Yep.
I can tell you right now, to this day and age, that is still a huge factor in recruiting.
Well, good. Well, thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Man, my God, I had to readjust here. Oh, this has been amazing. I cannot tell you how much I was looking forward to this all week long. I wasn't sure if you'd agree to join. Even if you hadn't, we were still going to be fans. We'd never have any hard feelings to anybody that either can't join or just isn't interested in doing a podcast. That's fine. We get it. We're still fans of you. No is always a viable option. It's always a viable answer. We don't mind. We've been told no. But to have you come on this show, it means a ton to me, especially just the fact that I have been a fan for the first time I can remember a thought.
I don't think you need to be a fan, but that's very kind of you. I'm just I'm a pretty normal guy from small town Nebraska, you know, so just end up having a chance to be
Pender, Nebraska, nonetheless. Gotta love Pender.
Nebraska that end up going all over this crazy game allowed me to get all over the place. So that's been It's been a lot of fun. The places I've been able to coach and travel and see, and then getting a chance to, like I said, I coached here 3 different times. And so that was, get a chance to do that from being from the state meant the world to me. And,
Wow,
like you said, still of all the places we could settle at, we still settled here in Lincoln right now. So, but I don't know, that coaching bug still, I got a lot of tread left on me. So I'll probably get back into that thing pretty quickly, hopefully.
Hopefully we can keep you here.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can just keep you around here. That'd be great.
It'd be very cool to be around here. Like I said, that's how the coaching profession works. And so people have asked if I was disappointed about not being, retained or, in this last hire. And I was like, I didn't think of it at all, because that's just I've been on those staffs that came in, and that's just how it works. Yeah. And so there was never a part of me that was like, well, I was upset. Like I said, and that's also why I'm also very positive about Nebraska still, because I'm not going to be recruiting for them all these years and from here and say, how great the place is, and then something doesn't go quite right, and then be like, well, that sucks. They're in trouble. And I'm like, no, that's not true. So I'm not going to be a negative person towards it. I have nothing but such respect for the history, respect for the new staff that's here. Hope everything goes great for them. And like I said, I watch from afar. I probably don't watch it as close as you guys do, because I take in a lot from coaching in the SEC and all these other leagues I've been in different places. I watch a lot of football, and where my friends are coaching and stuff. So I watch Nebraska. But probably don't is enthralled with the daily grind of what they do. But I am aware of everything they're doing, so I can talk about it on the radio show intelligently. But I have a little bit more of a national scope when I'm following things of what's going on with all these different things going on with all these new rulings. It's very intriguing to me, so I like reading up on those things and the changes and what's going on. So I enjoy college football. I enjoy watching it. That's, like I said, if there's MAC football's on Tuesdays in November, I'm watching this. It's fun to just to see what other teams are doing and what's going on. But you guys,
that's how I am too.
Yep, it's football's life.
You guys do incredible. It's an incredible podcast, and it's for the fans. I know,
thank you.
And it's awesome like that. It's a chance to see you again, Kenny. But like I said, like that, historically, what Kenny's done is incredible, and the history of what he's done in Nebraska is incredible. So appreciate it very much, and look forward to catching up with you guys sometime soon.
Absolutely. All right, before we sign off quick, here's y'all's giveaway question. I hope y'all were paying attention, because this ain't going to be football related. Which of his parents' wedding anniversary did the coach have to miss?
Ooh.
What number was it? I hope y'all were paying attention, because it's not Husker football related. All right, we'll give you 24 hours to comment on that one, just in case more than one person gets it right. And then we'll decide as to whoever won. I will get a hold of that person. You will have to go to hurrdatsports.com, check out our merch page, decide what you want, get back to me, let me know. We'll get it out to you. So that'll be pretty easy. Which number wedding anniversary of Coach's parents did he have to miss? Which one was it? I remember. That was easy. That was easy.
I got it.
I'm not going to say it. Not going to say it. But I remember. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get ready to shut her down. Coach Bill Busch, where can everybody find you on social media, my friend?
I have a Twitter account, or an X account, I guess.
Yep.
So I don't post a lot on there, but I have a lot of followers, so we have some fun stuff come up there from the show and have that. And then there's a CoachBillBusch.com website, and I've been very fortunate through some great people. Have asked me about a year ago about doing some public speaking and some motivational speaking, and so I do a lot of those, and so I've really enjoyed doing that. So there's a website for that, which to me, honestly, it's like people like you need to have a website. It's a little embarrassing to have that stuff, but because you have to have like clips of you up and different things, but it's on there, and that's been a lot of fun. So I'm pretty easy to find. At Coach Bill Busch and to be able to locate me. So, but very, very, like I say, like that, this is an incredible podcast. I love Husker fans, love being here. And like I said, I always keep in touch with everyone. And I love just being part of everything with Nebraska football.
Awesome. Well, guys, I will go ahead and shut it down. I don't think we're going to get any better than what we've just gotten throughout this hour and almost 20 minutes.
Agreed.
So at this point, everybody, you know where to find the show, Husker Army Podcast. Just Google us. You'll find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, plenty more audio-only platforms to check us out on. Check out our merch site at hurrdatsports.com. We've got plenty. We got shirts, we got mugs, we got tumblers, hats, stocking hats. I mean, they hooked us up, and now we want to hook you guys up. So there's our handle right there, Husker Army Pod. You'll find us Twitter, Instagram, not Facebook. We're only on there as ourselves. So you'll find Kenny right there at Husker Noop 1911 on Twitter, and Matt Sass is Herbie_Husker 15 on Twitter as well. Me, I just run the podcast. So that's usually me that's posting and commenting for Husker Army Pod. So any rants you saw, especially the Fine Bomb thing, that was all me. I hate that guy. I've never appreciated any of his insights. All right. So you guys got everything. You've heard from the great Coach Bill Busch. You've heard from us. You know what the giveaway question is. Hopefully you find the answer. You know where to find us. So I guess it really comes down to all we have to do at the very end. Husker Army, you know what to do. At ease, and you are all dismissed.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.